It's the Real Estate Podcast, brought to you by ANZ Home Loans for financial well-beings.
They really did stretch themselves. So Jitin and Anu purchased an investment property about 22 months ago now in WA because they weren't able to get into the Sydney market. They didn't have enough deposit. Their income was good enough to buy in Sydney, but they didn't have enough deposit to buy where they want to live.
And that is Terence Hammond on the Real Estate Breakfast this morning as we wind down our 2025 year, talking about your property news and information from the likes of suburbs including New Farm in Brisbane. Good morning if you are there, to the suburb of Croydon in Melbourne, and good morning to wherever you might be listening to the podcast, either inside Australia or in one of the many, many different countries around the world that are tuned in, with all of you expats looking to move back to Australia. And talking of Croydon, I actually used to live there many, many years ago when I used to work for 3KZ, which was the number one radio station back in the day. If you are in Melbourne, you might remember 3KZ, which is now called Gold 104.3. Yes, I've got vivid memories of catching the train into the city to work. Some fun times. Now, let us know how your property journey is going for 2025. You can now leave that voice message because we've got that voice recorder. You'll find that in the show notes. We'd love to hear your voice, so get voice messaging. If you're too shy for that, you can always send us an email, which is myrealestatepodcast@gmail.com. It is a Thursday. The week is starting to vanish. December the 11th. First home buyers, are you pushing yourself harder than ever? Well, many of you are now draining every dollar of your savings just to secure a property. A new Finder report shows that nearly half of buyers have gone over budget. It's a big jump from 2022 simply because prices are rising so fast, your original budget cannot keep up. It's left many stretched, unprepared for emergencies and taking on major risk as the market becomes more unpredictable. If you can relate to that, let us know how your story has gone in 2025 if you have purchased and you're finding it very, very difficult. Right, let's catch up with Terence Hammond. He is a mortgage broker. Good morning to you, Terence. Welcome on to the Real Estate Breakfast. And I just want to sort of go back to those first home buyers. They really are feeling that intense pressure. These price rises are outpacing their budget.
Absolutely. I'm seeing that a lot with the first home buyers. They go into the market with their 5% deposit. They're lucky to have 20% deposit, and they think that they can buy a particular house or a particular apartment. They start looking for those properties in that range. When they get in there, especially now, there's a lot of competition and those prices rise on the back of the government's 5% scheme. It's meaning that they're having to bid higher and higher, or they're getting into bidding wars with others, and they're really stretching their budget. And so the spare money that you talked about, that's being used, the emergency fund, the fund was set aside for moving costs, or the set aside for do some renovations, quick renovations when they moved into the house. Those things are now being put to the side, or they're having to buy properties that are a lot more run down now because they can't get the same type of property they were able to get even 3-4 months ago.
Yeah, and you just have to have a look at Sydney's median house prices, where they have jumped this year $121,000. That's on houses. Units have risen about 52 grand. These increases, they're just forcing first home buyers to stretch, as you say, even further than ever to stay competitive. Just want to sort of pick up on the fact with people that have, say, bought 7-8 months ago, and they've found, hey, this is really, really difficult. Like, you must have clients that have, and we're going to talk about one of them coming up in just a moment, but generally you must sort of find that where people are going, boy, I think I've bitten off too much than I can chew.
when you're in a market where prices keep going up, and that's incredible numbers. I mean, 121,000 on houses in 1 year, it's demoralizing for some first home buyers, and the ones that have gone in, if they're not getting the rate relief, if the rates aren't coming down, if their incomes are not going up, and they've stretched their budget and they're spending, 30, 40, sometimes 50% of their income on a mortgage, it's incredibly hard. Yes, a lot of clients are doing it tough, Craig. It's definitely not easy out there. And increasing house prices, not only is it difficult to get in, then, like you said, difficult to maintain them and keep them as well.
Yes, indeed. And we do feel for those first home buyers where some of them have just abandoned the idea of buying a property for them to live in. Instead, what they're doing is they're buying these investment properties. How much of that have you seen in 2025?
I've seen a lot of that, especially with the younger generation. So your under 25s, where they don't have, the servicing, they don't have the income to service these large mortgages that are needed to buy a house in Sydney. So what they're actually doing is they're going interstate, buying properties in growth areas. Some are using buyer's agents, some are doing it themselves, but they're trying to make money and they're trying to make equity from investment properties so that they can then either leverage that later on or sell that and bring that money back in to Sydney and help them try and buy, a house here.
And what about the 5% guarantee scheme, which came in on the 1st of October? So many people like yourself, mortgage brokers, incredibly busy as a result of this. How busy are you?
Yeah, well, I think the first things first is it was a surprise to all of us that it was brought in on the 1st of October. We was all expecting this to come in the 1st of March or later in 2026. I think it caught a lot of people by surprise, including the banks, especially on those schemes. Assessment times and SLAs have been drawn out massively, but it's put a lot of pressure on the market. And those price increases, all of these first-time buyers, it's a great scheme in terms of it's allowed a lot of people who couldn't get into the property market before. But on the flip side, all it's done is increase demand in a time when we've got housing shortages everywhere, and that's put pressure on prices. And I think that's the part as well, that it's been a blessing and a curse for some people, because the blessing side is that they never would have been able to get in, but the curse is that because more people are getting in, keeps pushing these prices up and it keeps getting more challenging to kind of get into the market.
We are talking to Terence there in Sydney this morning. When we come back, I'll get Terence to tell us a story about one of his customers, Jitin, and how he was able to, I guess, save Jitin and his wife some money. We'll talk about that next.
Decode the property market with insider knowledge and insights to better navigate your real estate journey.
So let's right now catch up with Jacob Aldridge, and to prove a point about travelling, he is in Tunisia. I have to say, I know very little about Tunisia.
It's a country I knew very little about before we made the decision to come here. We are full-time travellers now. We aim to spend time in 6 to 10 countries a year. There are some restrictions around how long you can spend in certain areas, like the Schengen zone in Europe. So we were looking for a summer location. And Tunisia came up as an opportunity. We booked an excellent home that we're staying in for a few months. And we didn't know very much beforehand. We've learned so much being here around the history of this country, Carthage, ancient Rome, a lot of civilizations, and a really beautiful country right at the tip of North Africa. That's been a wonderful experience that we've been able to have here, and world schooling our daughter, which we do as part of the travel, for her to be able to go and walk amongst 2,500-year-old ruins and learn that way is, I think, so much better than what she would have been. And our experience is that most people, most countries are very, very welcoming of anyone who can come and be respectful. And that's why we want to go. We want to go and experience different cultures, different people, and to respect what we're there for, rather than it perhaps being some of the ugly cliches of tourists around the world that people fear.
It's the Real Estate Podcast, talking properties from 6 a.m. every day, from every corner of the Australian real estate market.
And it is a Real Estate Thursday. We're talking to Terence in Sydney. And Terence, Jitin and his wife, these are a couple of your clients who had been house hunting around Sydney for months when the pressure really started to hit them. Everything they loved was out of reach and everything in their price range didn't quite feel right. Eventually, they stretched themselves into securing a home. And then, I think like a lot of people, reality set in. 6 months later, the mortgage was biting hard. Even after a couple of these rate cuts, nothing seemed to make a real difference. They were doing everything right, but still felt the squeeze happening to them. You stepped in somewhat. You helped them refinance their loan to relieve the pressure. Just goes to show, that refinancing, it's a big thing.
It absolutely is. And, their situation, they really did stretch themselves. So Jitin and Anu purchased an investment property about 22 months ago now in WA because they weren't able to get into the Sydney market. They didn't have enough deposit. Their income was good enough to buy in Sydney, but they didn't have enough deposit to buy where they want to live. So they bought an investment property. They did really well. They made some money out of it. Even doing that, even the money that they made on that investment property still meant that they were really stretched to kind of go and buy their house in Sydney. And so I was able to find solutions for them where we could borrow 85 and 90% without paying any lender's mortgage insurance. And for that reason, the only reason they were able to get back in, what that meant was the interest rates were really high. So anytime you go over 80%, the interest rate jumps up. And whilst these LMI products are fantastic in terms of saving money and not having that additional cost to outlay, they hurt you with a higher interest rate. Anu and Jitin were feeling that pinch. And so we reassessed, given the strength of the market in Sydney, their property price had already gone up and taken them to just above that 80%. So we made some inquiries to different lenders and we're able to get some exceptions to accept an 80% rate. We're able to save them over $500 a month with that refinance, which was a great outcome for them and obviously makes it easier for them to kind of do what they want to do with their family, especially coming up to Christmas time as well.
Oh, you're on their Christmas list, eh? For $500 a month. Well done.
Yeah, it was a really good outcome. And, you can hear the relief on the phone when I told them the good news. You love those phone calls. You love making those calls that make a difference and you can feel the real impact that it was having and what it would do for them. So made me feel good. That was for sure.
A couple of months ago, we were talking about the offset account and how many people, they don't check to make sure that is set up right. And there was an example where somebody had basically lost the value of a few $100,000. Always pays, doesn't it, with the offset to make sure that you check that and double check it.
Absolutely, it does. I mean, check your rate, check your offset, make sure that you're not paying as much money as possible to the bank and that, you're getting the benefit of having those extra funds, having those cheaper rates. It doesn't take very long, but it's well worth doing.
All right. Well, Christmas time isn't too far away. You'll be looking forward to a break. Are you getting away for your downtime?
I'm actually going home for the first time in 13 years. So I'm super excited. I think my mum is more excited than me. She's going to get to see the grandkids and spend Christmas back home in the UK. So that's going to be fun.
Wow, I did detect that ever so slight English accent coming through. What part of the UK are you from?
From Essex, so from a place called Southend-on-Sea. It's about 40 miles east of London.
Okay, and what's your mum's name, first name?
Eileen.
Eileen. All right, well, have yourself a wonderful time, Eileen. Terence has done a great job on the podcast this morning. You're no doubt listening to that. So Merry Christmas to Eileen. Merry Christmas to you and your family, Terence. And enjoy that holiday coming up.
Merry Christmas to you, Craig, as well, and to everyone listening. Thank you.
We help to break down real estate every day to help you better understand the Australian property market.
And FOMO is fading and more buyers are choosing to wait rather than rush into purchases. Is that what you are experiencing?
So I have found that a few auctions, you'll find that a few buyers have buyer's paralysis where they'll do all the work, they'll get the amendments and they'll get to the auction, but they won't bid. Or they'll get all the amendments ready to negotiate and then they'll decide that they want to pull out. They'll wait for another rate cut or for next year or for after Christmas. So that is something that I have seen as well.
Are you saying that it's more of a buyer's market at the moment in North Sydney?
So I would say slightly. In the market for the apartments, there is quite a bit of stock online. Because of that, I do believe that it's a bit of a buyer's market on that side. However, because of the houses, there's only 3 current houses for sale here at the moment. I mean, we are close to Christmas. That is an impact of it as well. There's quite a high demand for those detached houses.
We connect you to the best real estate information across Australia. The Real Estate Podcast.